So PQ, PS. There's my tick marks. Okay, so we've got our 90-degree angles from the perpendicular symbol here. We've got congruent angle, or congruent sides, excuse me, from the congruence theorem. So that's the two pieces of info that's given to me. What is something else that is not marked in the picture that I can mark? That's not given to me. Yes? The shared side, which is which one? The one in the middle. Yeah. So what am I going to put on that shared side? 2 tick marks. Yeah, perfect. This is my shared side. Okay, so now we've got 2 sides marked, and we've got an angle right here, a right angle. Now, without looking at the bottom, try not to look. Which theorem am I going to use for this problem? So what's given to you in this picture? How many sides? 2 sides and 1 angle. Now, that angle is not in between, right? So it's not side angle side. It would be SSA, and are you allowed to do that? No, you can't. So what, Rashawn? It's hypotenuse leg. Good. So we can't use the SSA, right? You're not allowed to square forward or backward, but this one does work for hypotenuse leg because you've got a 90-degree angle. Which one of these is your hypotenuse? PS, this one over here, the long one. Does that one have a mark on it? Yes, it does. So since your hypotenuse is marked, we can use hypotenuse leg. Maybe you should label that side as your hypotenuse. So we've got that side marked, which means we will use hypotenuse leg in this theorem. Okay, so now we've got all the information. Now it's just a moment of taking all that information and putting it into my statements and my reasons. So who can raise their hand and give me the first statement and reason? Easy peasy. What's the first one? Kiki? And what would be your reason? It's given. Great. So you always start with a piece of given information. PR is perpendicular to SQ, and that's given. So come to the bottom, and you can mark those off at the bottom. So once you use it, you don't need to use it again. Given. Okay. Who can give me a second statement for this picture? Second statement. I'll scroll back up here. Juan, what do you think? Good. PQ is congruent to QS. And what are you going to put for the reason? Given. Given. Good. And now I'm going to highlight my congruent symbol. So you've got 1. Got 1 congruent symbol. Sorry, let me screw that up. Got 1, so I'm highlighting it. How many do you need to prove a triangle is congruent? You need 3 of them, so I've got 2. All right, what else is marked in the picture? There's all your givens now. The shared side. Okay, so I need to write a sentence about the shared side. What would my statement be? PR is congruent to PR. It's congruent to itself, the shared side. And what is that reason for the shared side? Reflexive property. Good. So PR, yes, you can, is congruent to PR. So reflexive property is just that really fancy way of saying the shared side. And I've got another congruent symbol, so I highlight it. Okay. So I'll find that. I'm going to cross it off. And reflexive. Okay. Now, I still have some more things marked in the picture that I have not yet marked in my statements and reasons. What's something else that I marked in my picture that I haven't written a statement about yet? The right angles. Good. Right over here at angle R. So there are a couple different sentences about right angles if you look down at the bottom. Now, the first thing is we just need to state that there are some right angles. How do you know, yes, that there are some right angles? What do you think? It's marked in the picture. So what do you think for a statement and a reason, something I can put down? Go for it, Zarian. Are right angles. Yes, good. So this statement right here, we know that they're right angles. And what would be the reason for that? How do you know that they're right angles, Zarian? Well, if I'm saying all right angles are congruent, I better have a congruent symbol in my statement. And there's not a congruent symbol in this statement right here. Ooh, what? Well, hypotenuse leg isn't until I get 3 of these. Definition of perpendicular. So the word perpendicular told me that there's 90-degree angles. So that's my next statement. So statement 4 is that, remember, you look at the second letter, right? Angle R and angle R are right angles. So that's my next statement. Angle PRQ and angle PRS are, I do not have enough space for this. So I'm going to kind of shorthand that a little bit. They are right angles. And we knew that because the word perpendicular. So anytime you are given a word or a symbol in the given information, like sometimes I put the word bisect or midpoint, you do have to define it at some point in your reasons. Okay, cross that off, cross that off. What's the only other thing I have not yet marked in my picture? The angles what? Good, that these 2 angles are congruent. And how do you know that they're congruent? What's the only other option there? Yeah, all right angles are congruent. They're both right angles, so they're both 90 degrees. So my last statement is angle PRQ is congruent to angle PRS. And I've got a congruent symbol, so I'm going to highlight it. My reason is that all right angles are congruent. And now that I have 3 congruent symbols, what can I go to now for my final statement? The prove. So this problem asked me to prove that the triangles, the 2 triangles here, are congruent. So my final statement is triangle PRQ is congruent to triangle PRS. And which theorem did we use? Hypotenuse leg. So remember, when it comes to quiz time on Thursday, I'm not going to give you, like, I'll give you a word bank, but I'm not going to give you that. You're going to have to do that on your own. Okay, so I won't do it. Yeah. So like, I'll give you this stuff, but like this box would be like whited out, essentially. And you would have to know that that's hypotenuse leg. But the rest would be given to you. That won't be given to you because that's what you have to figure out on your own. All right. Questions on that one? What questions can I answer? Yes. Maybe. Which is maybe why you should get it done, right? Yes. All right, we're gonna do one more together. I'm gonna give you the rest of the time to work with people at your table. We're gonna do 11 together. Are we gonna do 11? Yeah, we'll do 11. It's long. Okay. Number 11. Now, what about this problem is different than all of the other problems we've done so far? There's something different about this problem. Zarian, what do you think? Okay, maybe they don't look the same. The prove what? Yes, look at the prove statement. We've only done ones with the prove has been triangles. This time it asks you to prove that angles are congruent. So already, you know your final sentence should be the proof. So if you want, let's just jump right down to the final sentence. Let's copy that proof. Well, if you already did it, you're just a step above the rest of us, clearly. Okay, I just copied my proof statement. I'm also going to cross it off at the bottom so I don't get confused. It's right over here. Okay, so I've written down that's my final proof, which is interesting. That means I'm going to prove the triangles are congruent before I do this. Okay. So let's look at what's given to us in the information. You're given X is the midpoint of VZ and X is the midpoint of WY. Who can raise your hand and tell me something I should mark in the picture? Something I should mark in the picture. That's not Kiki because she's answered like 5 questions. Love you though. Rashawn, go for it. At which letter? At angle X. Good. Vertical angles. Okay, so we know those angles are congruent because they're vertical angles. Great. What is something else I need to mark in this picture?
The midpoint.
The midpoint, which is at which letter?
Oh, yeah.
Right at X. Okay, so what does midpoint mean? In the middle. So if you're in the middle, what does that mean about the pieces that are left over? Juan, what do you think?
I was gonna ask a question.
Oh, ask a question.
So it gives us two, but like, what do we put? Do we just put a dot? Because like it says for W as well.
So it's the midpoint for both this line and for this line.
So that's how we mark it, just like one.
So you can put 1 point there to show that it's the midpoint, but I still need to do something with the sides that are left over. What do you think, Kia? Oh my gosh, when someone comes back, you go. Killing me. Yeah, tick marks. Where? So look, it's saying V to Z is from here to here. If I have a point in the middle, that means these two pieces that are left over are congruent.
Oh, so that would be the same for the other one.
It would then be the same for the other one too. So WY is this line, excuse me, and so it's these two pieces that would be congruent. Okay, so without looking at the bottom, which theorem am I going to use to prove that these two triangles are congruent? What? Side angle side. What was the question? No, it's not the same. You're proving two different things. That one asks you to prove that the triangles are congruent. This one's asking you to prove that angles are congruent. So I'm going to show you the difference. It's a very small difference between the two. Okay, yes, this one is side, angle, side. Right, you got two sides with an angle right in between it. So let's start with some statements and reasons. Easy peasy. What's the first statement and reason? X is the midpoint of VZ. What's your reason? Given. Okay, you should be good at this part now. I'm not going to write the whole thing out. Oops. X is the midpoint of VZ. Sorry, that looks terrible. And the reason is given. Great. And so once you've used it, mark it off in your down below. Okay. What's my second statement and reason? And what's the reason? Given again. Okay. X is the midpoint of WY. And again, that's given. So we always start with our given information. Cross that off. X is the, where's the other one? Down at the bottom. Okay. All right, so I've got those pieces marked, at least the given info. Now I actually have to write some statements and reasons about the pieces that are marked up in the picture. So who can give me a sentence and a reason for this picture that's left over? Vertical angles, so that's the reason. Now the question is, what's the sentence? Well, these are side lengths. If I'm going to talk about angles, then I have to have something with an angle marking with it. Yeah, so look at the second letter. The second letter there is the X's. That means the X's are congruent. So if you look at my picture, that's what I'm trying to prove. So this statement goes with vertical angles. Angle WXV is congruent to angle YXZ. Again, always look at the second letter. That's going to tell you which angle you're looking at. And your reason, like we said, was our vertical angles.
What are the other one?
Other one what? That's all I've gotten so far. 2 given in the vertical angles. Okay, what is another piece of information that we have marked in our picture that we have not yet wrote a sentence about? VX is congruent to ZX, and that reason is definition of midpoint. Good. So VX is congruent to ZX, and we knew that because of that word midpoint. Sorry. Okay, and I should actually have done this, right? Highlighted my pieces there. What's your next sentence going to be? It better be the other definition of midpoint, and what's the other 2 sides that are congruent? You did VX. Oh, WX, good. Okay, this one over here, yeah, WX is congruent to YX, the ones with the 2 tick marks on it. WX. Okay, and that again is definition of midpoint. Now, typically at this point, we have 3 pieces of information highlighted, right? We've got 3 congruent symbols. What does that mean we can now prove? What do we usually do after we've got our 3 congruent symbols highlighted?
Wait, we can do that?
Do what?
No, like there's an extra space.
I know there's an extra space because we haven't gotten to the final part yet.
Okay.
What do you know about these triangles now that we've got 3 congruent symbols?
You can put the proof in.
You can put, well, the proof is this one. But this sentence can say, as soon as you've got 3 pieces highlighted, you can prove the triangles are congruent. So my next statement better be that these 2 triangles are congruent, and which theorem did we use? Side angle side. So my next statement better be that this triangle here, triangle VWX, excuse me, is congruent to triangle ZYX. And we used side angle side. Right.
Why did that have the wrong X?
I will show you why.
Okay.
I got you. Good question. Okay, so typically in our last proofs, right, that was where we stopped. Right? That was the last sentence right there because the proof was proving that the triangles were congruent. If you go back to this proof though, this proof says, I want you to prove that angle XVW, which is really, if you look at the second letter here, I want you to prove that angle V is the same as angle Z. Angle V, angle Z. That's what I'm trying to prove, that these 2 are the same. Now, if you know that these are congruent triangles, what does that mean about everything in the triangles? They're the same, yeah. So once you've proven that the triangles are congruent, that means all of the angles and all of the sides have to be congruent. So my last statement here says, Angle V and angle Z, these ones right here, are congruent. And I know that because these triangles are congruent. That's the reason, right? The triangles are congruent. That's the reason. Now, we don't write that as the words. What we write is this little acronym here. It says Cpctc. It stands for corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent, which is a fancy way of saying if you have two congruent triangles, everything about them is the same. That's what that sentence there means. As soon as you have two congruent triangles, everything is the same. So if you ever see a proof that asks you to prove an angle or a side length, you have to use this theorem right here, Cpctc. If I ever ask you just for a triangle, then you don't need to worry about this one. We only use this one when you're trying to prove an angle or a side length is congruent. So this last one here, Cpctc, I don't know where we're going to write the acronym because it's very long. I'm going to put it up at the top, okay? So that stands for corresponding, which means same place, corresponding parts of congruent triangles, I'm just going to put a triangle symbol, are congruent. Corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. So we use that anytime the proof has to do with an angle or a side length. So like in number 12, you're going to see that same kind of thing. That means you have to use corresponding parts of congruent triangles. If you don't see an angle or a side length, then you don't need to use it.
Will you ever give us this? The CP, whatever it is?
Maybe.
Will it be on the test?
Maybe.
It's a simple yes or no question.
I don't remember off the top of my head because I made the test a while ago, like a week ago, so I don't remember, to be frank with you.
So it will be on there, guys.
So maybe is the answer, maybe. Okay. Unfortunately, we don't have too much time, but you do have 13, 14-ish minutes to complete the other proofs that are left over. So you have to complete number 8 through number 14. 8 through 14, but I'm hopeful now that we've done we did the hard ones that the rest should feel pretty easy for you. So take this time now, work with the people at your table to work on the rest of the proofs that are left over. We'll check them tomorrow. You'll get a grade for them tomorrow, just like you got a grade for them today. And again, you probably want them done because maybe I'll let you use them on the quiz. Cough, cough, hint, hint. So that's what you're working on now for the next 15-ish minutes here.